We'll be going through the history of Singapore's hawker centers, how they came to be in the modern form that they are in. And I feel like Mumbai really has a lot to learn from the way Singapore has tackled the issue of hawkers and managed them properly and actually created a great amount of cultural value in that whole process. So I trust that most of you generally must be knowing what a hawker center in Singapore is. But for those who don't know, I have just added these four pictures so that you can get a nice idea. Hawker centers come in different shapes and sizes, but these are basically imagine like a mall food court, but which is a standalone building at different locations across the city where hawkers are present. Hawkers can cook their food. People have a common dining area. They can have food. They can play Go like you're seeing in the second image on the top right. They have proper hygienic cooking rooms like you see in the bottom right picture, and the seating area as you can see on the bottom left part of the image. So this is basically what a hawker center looks like. And I think this is a very remarkable feat that Singapore has achieved. And it is quite unique in the way they operate their hawker centers compared to most other countries. We'll try to learn how and why and go through a 120-year-old history of what was the process of this whole thing. Not just the history, but also the struggle. Because we are, I think, as a country in a struggle phase of containing or kind of, I don't know, containing is a bit of a harsh word, but try to manage hawkers that are present in our cities. To learn how and why hawkers exist in Singapore, I feel we should learn a bit of the geography, take a geography lesson. You can see Singapore marked on the map, and over here, you know, this is Japan, this is Korea, this is China. All of the goods which are going from Asia or Northeast Asia have to pass through this small state of Malacca. If it has to come to India, if it has to go to Europe, Greece, Central Europe, it has to go to Africa. Oil coming from the Middle East, the Gulf nations, has to go through this Strait of Malacca past Singapore, which makes Singapore an amazing location to set up a port so that you can actually exchange stuff, you can transfer stuff. It's amazing for the for logistics across the world. Especially, it has boomed a lot more since the Suez Canal was opened in the 1869. And basically, that's how Singapore came to be. And Singapore became a port city. And where there are ports, there are a lot of merchants, people from different communities, backgrounds, different locations geographically convene at one location. And when so many migrants are there, when so many people with different cultures are there, they bring their culture with them. And through culture, they bring their food with them. And that is how, as Singapore's population grew and as their port expanded with the migrants, the food or the hawker culture came up to feed all of these people in a very cheap and affordable way. You can see the hawker present on the left hand side image. This is basically what a hawker with a Chinese descent generally walk with. So you are seeing him balance the utensils on the back of his stick and the food, the raw materials and all on the front side. This is how generally hawking used to happen back then. The right hand side image, you can see how hawkers had used to exist at the street side, not very different from what we see in Mumbai quite right now, except for that we generally have chairs and all things present. It was not hawking was not really immediately accepted into the society as the kind of profession that it is accepted in Singapore back then. You can see the quote that I have at the bottom. The authorities regarded hawkers as a source of public disorder, fueling the activities of secret societies and street gangs by paying money in return for protection against intimidation and extortion from other secret societies and gangs. This, I feel, is very reminiscent of Mumbai because all of us have an implicit understanding that hawkers, when they are operating in Mumbai, operate with a certain amount of implicit protection money that they have to pay, not to gangs, but generally to officials, civic officials who kind of have to who allow them to stay on the streets, because at a lot of places street hockey is illegal in Mumbai, and we really still don't have good frameworks for how to manage hockey in the city. But throughout the history that we will see of Singapore, you will see a lot of parallels with Mumbai, and I want you guys to kind of focus on those parallels and try to find out what parallels we have. As far back as 1895, the Municipal Health Office warned that hawker food was extremely liable to contamination and often prepared over filthy drains, poor hygiene, untreated water, and unhygienic lodgings. Described in 1907 as overrun with cockroaches and vermin, worsened the risk of disease and obviously all the health problems that are coming with disease. You can see how the people are sitting in the image. The guy is eating off of the table, and you can see all the water and the garbage being lying around, fairly close to the hawkers which are present. And I feel within the municipal authorities, we at Walking Project have communicated a lot with multiple municipal authorities, and this is generally the observation that most uh, civic officials have, that hawking is clearly not hygienic in the way that it is present right now. The path to formalization actually started long back in 1906, and hawking legislation was basically passed, and some of the hawkers, not all of them, some of the hawkers were licensed and registered, and hawking was prevented to be present from certain areas, but very limited. This whole practice was very limited in scope, and also it did not cover daytime hawkers. It only covered the nighttime hawkers presence. Then we jumped immediately to 1915 and 1919. Licensing is actually extended to all kinds of hawkers, daytime hawkers, nighttime hawkers. So a lot more licenses are given to hawkers. This is the same case we have in Mumbai. We have licensing. We have a licensing system, but we'll see how it goes ahead. So in 1922, the first hawker shelter was actually built in Singapore at Finlayson Green. And sadly, despite this hawker center being built, we'll see how it took a long time to actually still go ahead and solve the problem to a good extent. After 1922, 1924, the municipal health officer made a radical proposal that they want no street hawking at all. They want to eradicate hawkers completely. And this is a great learning example, because this is one statement that we get to learn from a lot of high court judgments, lot of civic officials, and generally it's also uh, the opinion of a lot of people who don't understand the issue completely. This is the kind of thing that we see. So after this radical proposal was made, the people immediately supported hawkers which were present on the streets, and there were a lot of protests because people needed to have food, people needed to have affordable food, and if you are completely taking away this whole system that is present of eating, it is going to have a lot of public backlash, and that is exactly what happened. And this proposal by the municipal officer actually failed. So over the years between 1928 and 1959, a lot of things actually kept on happening. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of struggle that took place. In 1928, the hawker licenses were capped at 6,000, and the number of hawker stalls fell from 11,249 in 1919 to 5,000. But over here, actually, as we can see in 1931, the report says that there are 4,000 unlicensed hawkers. We in Mumbai right now are exactly in this phase where we have declared certain number of hawkers which are legal and have completely ruled out the rest of the hawkers from made them completely illegal. And we'll learn further why that is a problem. So as we move ahead, we see in 1950s, the Hawker Inquiry Commission recommends licensing, medical checks, inspectors, and building hawker sector. This is what we have not done in India. Markets and hawker departments was formed in 1957, but Still, we are struggling. We have only 16 inspectors for 30,000 hawkers that were present at that time in Singapore. In 1959, illegal hawkers were exceed 30,000. So hawkers which were 30,000 in total were exceeding over 30,000. And there are daily raids, not unlike what we see in Mumbai. And some different part of Mumbai is raided every day by the municipality to evict hawkers, and they keep on coming back. In 1965, there was a typhoid outbreak which infected 82 students. It was linked to a hawker which was present at one of the locations who was which was in unhygienic condition, and the water source that they were using was not healthy, and which caused a lot of problems and a lot of health concerns in the whole society. So as we see between 1900 and 1965, still we are kind of struggling. There is a lot of tug of war. There's a lot of back and forth that we are seeing. But there is still no resolution like we're seeing. In 1965, Singapore actually got independence from the British rule. And after independence, immediately the Ministry of Health over there pledged that we will completely stop illegal hawking. They will start registration of all the hawkers and relocating them. This is where actually the tide starts turning, and they actually take up a lot of changes that are happening for the good in the whole system that Singapore has right now. In 1966, Hawkers Code was actually introduced, in which licensing was started, and it was restricted to certain locations and a certain amount of trades. Street hawking was completely banned in certain areas, like in around government offices or other places. In 1969, as we see, registration of all hawkers was completed. So they were estimating the hawker numbers to be somewhere around 40,000 to 50,000, but it was actually 24,000 when they ended up doing the registration. And the Environmental Public Health Act, which was founded in 1969, actually enforced hygiene standards for these hawkers. The kind of food they should be preparing, the quality of water, the safety, the storage, all of the things uh, were under this Environment Public Health Act. And in 1971 is when the Hawker Center Development Committee itself was formed, where they started actually planning modern hawker centers. And the whole system starts picking up a lot of pace over here. In 1971 itself, this built the first hawker center, which was present at a wet market, in the place of a wet market, which used to exist over there. And after 1971, they built a lot of these hawker centers across the city. Between 1972 and 1975, they built 10 new hawker centers across the city, and 7,000 hawkers were relocated from the streets of Singapore on into these hawker centers. The next point in 1974 that you see at the bottom is very similar to what we see right now in Mumbai. A special squad is formed to chase unlicensed hawkers, creating a cat and mouse game. Hawkers set up shop here, but when authorities come, they run and relocate elsewhere. This is what we see. This is what BMC officials complain about. All municipalities across the MMR region have this problem, and there seems to be no end in sight for this problem because we are not focusing, or we are not acknowledging that there is a supply and demand situation which is going on with the hawkers being there. In 1986, after all this, last 80 street hawkers were removed from Singapore. The entirety of Singapore, which is by land area similar in size to Greater Mumbai. From that entire landmass, they completely removed all of the hawkers in the year 1986. And they had built 113 hawker centers across the city. And in 1998, they actually brought in a system of grading the hawkers. Previously, they had a demerit points where if you don't maintain a certain cleanliness, you get demerited in your ranking. But then they moved on to a system for grading it between A to D, A being the most excellent, most hygienic and clean environment for the food where it is prepared. And as you can see at the bottom text just below the rankings that we see, uh, 99% of the licensees which were awarded in the year 2020 were following A or B rating. So cleanliness was very good in 99% of the hawker stalls present across Singapore. And in 2019, Singapore actually nominated the hawker culture which was present for the UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage Listing tag, which is a very esteemed tag. In Mumbai, we have a UNESCO tag for CST station. We have the tag for Marine Drive. Uh, yeah. Okay, Rishi is asking, share the land area of Singapore and the population as of 2000. Land area is around 724 square kilometers, and the population right now, I know it is around 6 to 8 million, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's 6 to 8 million. So we went through the history. I want us to delve on the story right now. A lot of this data you can actually find online on government websites, Singapore government websites. This map is exactly from them. These are the locations of the entire nation of Singapore, all of the hawker centers that you can find. And I really encourage all of the participants of today's webinar to actually go ahead and search for this website. Just search hawker centers environment. So hawker centers come under the Ministry of Environment. And on the website, you will find basically all the details that you would want from the government website. Where are the hawker centers present? What are the names? What are the kind of food items that you get? They also have a single window clearance process and a guidance system for how to set up a hawking stall at these places. Right now, in the island of Singapore, there are 120 hawker centers spread across the city at most locations. And since 1971, some of you might know that Singapore had like 90%, 80 to 90% of the housing in Singapore is actually public housing, which is built by the government. And at all of these locations where the housing complexes were built, a hawker center was present so that there is affordable food in each and every hawker center. And all the hawker center also have a decent footfall of people, and they are self-sustaining in the amount of patronage that they are getting at these locations. And this is a Singapore government website, routes.sg, routes.gov.sg, right? And I actually just copied this entire thing verbatim because I don't think I could have done justice to the text that they have put up in this on the website. And I want you to, through these next few slides, I want you to learn and see the kind of empathy that is present within the Singapore government, that the kind of respect that they are providing to the hawkers and the people that they are present over there in Singapore. So gearing up for the future, what does Singapore plan? So Hawker Center upgradation program was launched in February 2001, which is 24 years ago, to improve the dining experience at hawker centers. So the hawker centers are not just built, it was so bana diya hai building and it's left. It's actually something they constantly think about. They have iterative improvement processes and they constantly improve all of these places for stuff. So what are they doing? Quote, for the hardworking patrons and hawkers, they want to improve the dining experience. Upgraded hawker centers enjoy retiling, new tables and seats, replacement of utility services, rewiring, improvement to the ventilation, bin centers and toilets, re-roofing where necessary, provision of exhaust flow systems, which is basically the exhaust gases which are coming out of the cooking centers. They need to be properly channelized. That is something that they have thought of. Some centers even go through a complete reconfiguration or rebuilding. In addition to central freezer area, so the food or all the stuff, the raw materials that they have is actually being uh, kept at a centralized freezer area so that the hygiene standards are maintained properly. Central wash areas are also maintained and set up for sorting for whatever crockery is being used. So very similar to what we see present in malls in Mumbai, where you have a central food court and then the generally all the cutlery that they have is also centralized and cleaned and utilized properly in a nice centralized manner, you have a lot of economies of scale which kick in when you have such a system. While the space is not air conditioned, obviously they want to also keep the operating costs down. Generally, it preserves a traditional atmosphere which is present in Singapore and the charm of the hawker center. They also have upgraded all of these hawker centers to have barrier-free access and have been prioritized to facilitate the movement of patrons in wheelchairs over the years. So that is the amount of respect. This respect is not just for Singaporeans who are coming there to eat, it is also present for the hawkers who are cooking in these places. It's also for people who are disabled. It's also preventing all kinds of exhaust gases from going across the city. And I really encourage you guys to see the documentary that Singapore has. So CNE is the state broadcaster of Singapore, and it has a two-part documentary on this whole hawking culture which is present. And within that entire documentary, you will see how a lot of mind is being put into the building up of all of these hawker centers. So whenever a hawker center is designed, a proper architect who has learned not just architecture but also psychology is being employed to design the hawker centers in a manner which will actually help keep the entire space circulation area proper, keep the costs low, keep the design, architecture, and all of the things in plan it properly, make the people who are enjoying at the places sit properly and follow the rules and channelize all of the behavior properly. Even it goes to a level as granular as the placement of tables so that people who are introverted do not want to be clustered into a very crowded table, so they have tables for that. So the thought process is that deep when they are building something, and it is creating jobs, it's creating employment and all sorts of things. So it's not just that they have built hawker centers, but it is also something that they are valuing, that that is something that they want to preserve and which they want to keep it for the future. It's not seen as a problem that they want to solve. It is also something they want to nurture and cherish. And we'll see how they want to do it. So to safeguard Singapore's soccer culture, they have rolled out, they have basically marked four things, which is transmission, research and documentation, support, and promotion. All of these are demonstrated through the collaborative efforts of among different government agencies, hawkers, training institutions, community organization, academia, non-governmental organizations, and individuals. So we'll go through each of these. Transmission. Hawkers are encouraged to pass down their culinary practices to apprentices or family members. This is demonstrated through initiatives such as the Hawkers Development Program. This is basically a government program introduced by the National Environment Agency and Skills Future Singapore to teach aspiring hawkers about the culinary secrets of experienced hawkers and to provide apprenticeships to ensure that hawkers' favorites will continue to be served for generations. So in Mumbai, we see a lot of these vada pav stalls, the Chinese stalls, a lot of these stalls, and we are lucky that our population is fairly young right now. And we still have a lot of years for all of this cultural value that is present in our street food to be nurtured, cherished, and passed down. Our population also helps with that because we have a lot of people to be fed, and we don't really have to worry about some food items or the quality of those food items being lost. But with the aging population, with a high income population in Singapore, Singapore basically has a per capita GDP of 54,000 US dollars, which will be 5 times greater than we have in Mumbai in PPP terms. And from the national level, if you see, it's even far, far higher than that. But still, hawker centers are something not like people who are hawking in Singapore are not seen as people who are poor or which are like it's not a non-aspirational job. It's not a thing which is seen that somebody is doing out of sheer necessity. It is respected profession. It is encouraged, and there are skill skill development initiatives that the government in Singapore actually takes up to safeguard the activity of hawkers and hawking Research and documentation is something which goes on in addition to transmission. So local food advocates, community organizations, all of these actively document the rich heritage that hawkers have, how a certain food dish has actually, how it was envisaged back in the early 1900s, and how it has changed through the time as the population and the demographics of Singapore has changed. Singapore has a lot of Tamilian population, so how has the dosa culture over there changed and mixed with the Malay culture and the Chinese culture which is present over there? All of this is actually brought together and documented in a proper manner in the libraries, publications, editorials, multimedia materials, YouTube videos. All of this you will see. So there is a comprehensive resource pool. All of these things that we see. In addition to that, there is also support which is present for all of these hawkers. So there are federations like Merchants Association Singapore and other hawkers association, which work closely with the government to curate policies which will help hawkers. The National Environment Agency also sets up incubation stall program to encourage aspiring hawkers to set up their stall with a low startup cost. So they are seeing these hawking stalls not simply as, again, as a thing to manage, but as a startup, as a genuine business which needs to be supported. Now in India, we have a very similar parallel to this. You will see a lot of political parties actually funding hawker stalls. You have the Shiv Vada Pav, or you have a lot of BJP sponsored stalls, etc. So there is an implicit understanding that it is creating jobs, it is kind of creating professions, but to a large extent, it's not encouraged to the it's not encouraged and it's not supported as much uh, at a broad scale. There are programs where hawkers and all these people can get loans and loans, etc. But they are still not legalized in a proper manner. The implementation of a lot of government of court rulings has not happened properly. So we still have a lot of gray area present within our city's policies, and it is completely in contrast with what is present in Singapore, where it is actually being encouraged in a proactive way. Promotion is the next point, which is heritage and food enthusiasts as well as museums and other organizations have launched exhibitions and campaigns to help promote Singapore's hawker culture. NGOs such as Slow Food Singapore have also been organizing different workshops and programs to educate students and the wider community about our food heritage. While private agencies like Eat, Shop, Play have tapped on digital and social media to promote hawker stalls in Singapore. So all of this culture is being spread not just within Singapore, but throughout the world through all of these digital means. You can go on YouTube and just search for Singapore Hawker Market food tour or something, and you will find a lot of videos, some of which are funded by the government in some sense. So there is a lot of effort which is put in by Singapore. Now, in this next section, I really want to see what can Mumbai actually learn from all of this. I want you guys to go through some of these images to kind of get come back to India, come back to Mumbai, and come back to what is the kind of situation or uh, like view that we have in Mumbai. This is a hawker stall somewhere in Santa Cruz West, near I think Podar School, and a lot of people in a table lying up, and a lot of people are having food over here. This is in Goregaon West on MG Road. A very famous vada pav guy, but samosa guy, which is present over there, and you can see a lot of people enjoying the food over there. Uh, Affordable food, but this is considered illegal in India. You are not allowed to cook with a cylinder open flame on the street. There is another guy who is selling lychees present in Santa Cruz, right at the corner of the road, completely blocking a lot of traffic and unorganized in a sense. This is from Mulund. You can see the entire section of the road which is completely covered by hawking, and the footpath is completely inaccessible. This is where I want to bring in our experience with the municipality that we have had. Right now, there is a Supreme Court ruling that in 2014, basically, the government of India passed something called Street Vendors Act, under which street vendors in all the cities across India need to be registered. And each city, each municipality has to come up with a policy to manage hawkers. These street vendors should have a say. There has to be a voting system so that there is some representation in these town vending committees. And these town vending committees will also decide what places on the streets need to be given up for hawking. And a lot of this implementation has actually not been done. Whenever we go to the municipality and say "Ki we need footpath improvements," they immediately say "Ki we don't want to widen the footpaths because hawkers will take over the places." Whereas within Indian documents, within Indian guidelines, we hawkers are allowed on our footpaths. The problem is that our footpaths are not wide enough. According to Indian guidelines, a footpath is supposed to be divided into sections. One section will contain hawking without bothering the walking space at all. But we don't implement it, and a lot of municipal officers, even IAS officers, do not completely know about this street vending policy. And generally, the policy that we go through is danda marne ka and hatane ka hawkers ko. But the thing is, like we said in the Singapore point, that this is a supply demand issue. You cannot just completely demand for something. There is going to be somebody who is going to fulfill that demand. The problem is that we have not managed it properly. This is where land use comes in. I see hawkers as a two-pronged problem. One is the street hawkers. So we should be having certain amount of street hawking present on our streets so that there is a livelier atmosphere at nights because it adds to the eyes on streets factor. We have had multiple people during our community walks that we host who say that they felt unsafe in London because at night there is very little activity. It feels unsafe to because there's nobody and it's completely empty. So hawkers provide that kind of safety on streets. You will also see outside a lot of corporate parks that uh, there are people who are having food outside the park, be it at Godrej, be it at Andheri MIDC, be it at Nariman Point. All of these places you will have hawkers present who are feeding these people who are earning upwards of 80,000 rupees a month, 1 lakh rupees a month, which is a market flaw that is present in our systems. And we have not provided that supply for the demand, the supply of space for the demand. Some of this supply, some of this demand for hawkers can be placed on the footpaths, but some of it is also supposed to be present in such kind of hawker centers that uh, Singapore has within their country. This is where land use comes in. You see all of these categories on the right hand side: residential, commercial. So all of this land use planning is done when our DPs are prepared. And as the city grows, we are supposed to allocate spaces for all of these activities proportionately so that the city is livable. And in Mumbai, we have actually failed at that. I like to give this example during our community walks, talks, presentations, all of these things. Crawford Market in Mumbai was built in 1869. Around the same time, I think Britishers landed in Singapore and all of the some of these points that you saw. The population of Mumbai back then was around 6.5 lakh people. Today it is 240 lakhs. So 6.5 lakh से हम 240 lakhs पे पहुंच गए हैं, which is 36 times, approximately 36 times more than what it was back in 1860, the Crawford Market bana. Do we see 36 more Crawford markets across Mumbai? क्या हमने उतने बड़े मार्केट्स बनाए हैं? Have we tried to cater to that demand कि ओके एक मार्केट साउथ मुंबई में है, एक दादर में है, एक वर्ली में है, एक बांद्रा में है? The fact is that as our population has grown, we have not allocated enough space for these activities. When there is a certain amount of density present in our city, there is going to be a certain amount of hawking which is present in these cities, especially with our socio-economic factors in India, where a lot of people are poor and they can't afford food. And like in the corporate park ka example I gave, a lot of people, the variety with street hawking is far higher than what you would get at a very high-end canteen, where it will also be expensive. So that land use planning has not happened, and where and because there are no places present in our cities, hawkers tend to form up at locations where there is a high footfall and where it is a public space. It spills over on streets like these in this image that you're seeing. Public spaces which are less जहाँ पे vigilance कम है, they end up occupying these spaces. This image especially I like because on the left hand side you see this huge bus depot that is present right besides Goregaon station, and you see all of these hawkers. Any pragmatic society would actually try to kind of integrate this whole thing within the above this bus depot where the top two floors are hawkers. Uske niche there is a whole bus depot present. On top of it, there are co-working spaces aligned with the railway station. There's a lot of things which can be solved. India has a lot of very well educated urban planners, has a lot of architects who have learned a lot. And we as a society need to put all of these people to work to solve problems that exist in our society. If we are not if we are not leveraging all the knowledge that is being gained in our institutions and putting them to public use, it's of no use. All of that knowledge is of no use. It goes down the drain. Next, you on the left hand side, you will see all of the judgments that Bombay High Court has made, and all of these are over a span of 8 months. So, har mahine there is some of the other judgment which comes from Bombay High Court. First one is if you can't enforce laws to remove hawkers, let people take law in their hands. Bombay High Court slams Maha government. The court is saying their hands. How does this make sense? Illegal hawkers to be evicted off streets of Mumbai. Bombay High Court censures Mumbai police, state government, and BMC. Again, sometime एक साल हो गया होगा इसको. Bombay High Court criticizes Mumbai police BMC for inaction against unauthorized hawkers. Hawking menace Bombay High Court slams BMC and Maharashtra government for blame failure to establish town vending committees. So it's such a heavy amount of mixed signals कि the Bombay High Court does not understand कि Supreme Court का judgment है. There is a law passed in the Indian government by the Indian government for town vending committees and all of these street vending committees. उसका implementation नहीं हुआ है because of which hawkers are present on our streets, unlicensed in an unlicensed manner. And we are just doing this cat and mouse game where we are not attacking the root cause. It's like saying, it's like repainting the house after it has some kind of moss growth without fixing the leakage. Leakage आप fix नहीं करोगे, उसके ऊपर ही paint करोगे तो paint खराब होगा ही ना. Need to fix the underlying issue, and the underlying issue is on the right hand side. Hawking as an activity is a 120 crore business every day. उसमें से around 1.5 crore is the amount of cash protection money which goes to all of these people. So what we as a society has done is there is a underlying demand which is present, and we have kept it illegal. And because it is illegal, there is a hanging talwar on all of the hawkers which are present in the city. And that hanging talwar is basically eviction. So because there is that money to be made, a lot of civic officials, police officials, and all of these people have the leverage over them कि ठीक है मैं protection money दूंगा, you will be notified about your raids which are going to happen in your locality, या फिर you give me protection money and I won't evict you from this location. And if as a society we could create hawker centers like Singapore, if we could have all of these systems in place, if we could employ the people necessary to maintain all of these things, we could actually kill this whole nexus that is illegal nexus that is present. And let's not forget that hawkers over here are not at fault. Hawking as an activity, hawkers are not there for free. Hawkers have to pay this hafta that goes on, which is similar to Singapore. Singapore में हफ्ता जाता है government को, हमारे यहाँ पे हफ्ता जाता है to some government official. And through this webinar, I feel कि you guys should go ahead with empathy and a little nuance. which will go ahead and not just have a very anti-hawker view and see why this as a system is failing and why we need to actually look at this problem more systemically than on an individual thing ki, okay tum hawker se kharido mat and the problem will be solved. It's illogical. People are coming out of the railway station, they will look for the easiest way to buy food, they'll buy the easiest way to buy groceries or any other stuff. And all of these hawkers are present not because they have something against all of these people coming out of railway stations or to inconvenience all of these people. They are there for their livelihood. There is a demand which they are there to fulfill. A lot of them are poor. They live in shanties, and hawking is a genuine activity which creates, which helps them feed their kids, help them get their kids educated. As we go, I just want you guys to see a nice Singapore hawker market and see the kind of vibrancy which is present within these hawker centers, and kind of help spark a zeal within you. Ki, why can't we have certain similar situations at our railway station areas where certain spaces are taken up, bus depots, या फिर even the station area के ऊपर का जगह can be taken up. Uh, Simple example I would be is in Navi Mumbai. Sidco has actually done this where they have created a lot of hawker centers. They are nowhere as grand as the ones we see in Singapore. They are also nowhere as abundant, or they are not big enough to cater to the demand which is present in Navi Mumbai. But it's, I feel, a good start. And transit-oriented hawking and transit-oriented commercial spaces is something we should look at as a society. And hawking as a problem needs to be looked at in a more empathetic manner and a more systemic manner. So yeah, that's it for my presentation. I think some of you were leaving some comments which are present. I will try to answer some of those. Dr. Matthew is asking, is Singapore a democracy like India? Uh, Singapore is considered a democracy, but the ruling party has been in power for the longest amount of time. They have a different party, but the dynamic over there is very different. Uh, Rishi has his whole comment over there. I call in any other uh, comments or questions that you guys have. You can turn on your microphones and just ask the question. Okay, I see Aniruddha is asking. Thanks for
Hi
including
Vedant,
me.
I put it
Yeah,
on chat because it's multiple questions, so you can
okay,
just
okay.
read through and would like to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. My main takeaway is that this ultimately comes down to government intent. I believe that Walking Project team interfaces with BMC, MMRDA, Mumbai Police, etc. regularly. What is the sense you get from the authorities on this? Where is their mind at? Is the protection money the only reason holding back action? So throughout our interactions, I would give you one example which happened at HOS Ward, where we have a flagship program where we want to improve the walking conditions and make SV Road a benchmark for the city. And in HOS Ward, which is Bandra West, Car West up to Santa Cruz, we wanted the footpaths to be widened and improve the walking to be improved, footpaths to have proper slopes, accessibility improvements. And within that meeting, I remember the ward officer actually asked us, "Ki, have you thought something about hawkers? Ki inka kya karna hai? If you have you done a survey ki where are these hawkers present?" When in actuality, by law, the municipality themselves is required to do this mapping and everything. So they are supposed to be the authority which provides us this information if we require. And that guy himself is asking us, Ki, have you thought about hawkers? So there is clearly they themselves don't feel enough pressure, or they don't know what are the provisions of the Street Vending Act. And there is clearly not enough understanding. Protection money, I feel, is not the only thing that is keeping releasing, holding back the action. I think it's also a lot of lack of will, like you mentioned. I feel like people generally see it as a very difficult to solve issue, and anything which is difficult, which is not, which cannot be solved in one political term, just 5 years. No? People just don't want to touch. Politicians don't want to touch it because there is a equilibrium which is present in our society. With MMRDA, so with MMRDA, we had suggested them ki they should have some kind of a hawker center. We are still making that uh, proposal again. If you have been to E Block, you will have seen at IRB, at RBI and all of those places. There are these very badly maintained hawker centers, like hawker stalls present, very unhygienic near City Park. And we actually wanted to propose that they should create a hawker center over there and manage it properly so that the utensils are cleaned properly. The food is the clean waste is not going out and all of those things. So I think there's a lot of things.
I would like to just kind of, with that, also jump
Yeah.
into that question. So, Anirudh, this is an issue which has been going on in the under discussion in the city for at least 30, 40 years, 3, 4 decades. And I would like to over here acknowledge the enormous work done by City Space and which is now called as Nagar. I don't remember the exact years when they filed the PL that Atul Bora used to lead all of this. He's no longer there. And even that time, the thing, I mean, I think most of the questions are rhetorical, which you are asking. The challenge really for city space used to be to able to cobble up the necessary numbers and resources. If you're talking 3 lakh hawkers and unions, legal, illegal, and protection money of almost 1.5 crores per day, or 2 crores, I think that time. By now, it's definitely a lot more. Then the petitioners, which is city space, which is arguing in public interest, which is arguing in larger social interest, used to have a tough time being able to get advocates, counsels. The matter went up till Supreme Court. And there are enough anecdotes from 15, 20 years back. I remember sitting with the teams, and everybody used to get amused that every time they end up in court, the hawker side used to have the best of counsels. I mean, people who are charging 5 lakh rupees a day and those kind of things. And they were no match at all. I mean, they were just kind of, it was an absolute wipeout. So this is a point which I keep making again and again ad nauseum. People get tired, but people need to get tired that we don't have enough citizens in the city who appreciate efforts like City Space Nagar put in 20 years back. I don't want to be self-congratulatory and talk about walking project over here at all. And I'm just acknowledging the enormous effort put in by so many people. But again, it's the same experience for us at Walking Project right now, right? How many people end up being even members, supporters at all? So it's a numbers game. If you put it on a seesaw, where are our 15 regular recurring donors and where are the 3 lakh recurring donors of the hawker side? If you put it on a seesaw, 15 versus 3 lakh is the gap. So this is a huge societal problem, I think, which is not adequately addressed. Our IS officers should show this kind of a vision, which Vedant is presented right now. Till 20 years back, it was a recurring annual affair that all the top IS officers would go for study tours abroad. And after being embarrassed a lot, then it stopped. And even
Now they don't
politicians who
announce that.
sometimes, huh?
Now they don't announce that. They just go.
Now we don't announce it. You're right. You're right. Now everybody is become intelligent. Nobody announces. Everybody keeps it a private. I mean, but till 20 years back, it used to be a grand affair reported in the Times of India that they've gone to a London, they've gone to a Singapore, they've gone to a Shanghai, and this is specifically a World Bank supported funded trip, and 10 people, 20 people delegation going for a week, 10 days, 20 days. And as activists, as people concerned for the city's issues, regularly participating, this used to be a regular question which we used to ask that what have you learned over there and what can we see implemented in a year or 2 years. And in a 20-year time frame, we really messed up the land use of Mumbai like nobody's business. Till 20 years back, even 10 years back, FSI was not on a tap. Now it is on a tap. Land use is changing. Vedant gave a great example of the Goregaon bus depot. I mean, those kind of examples have been discussed so many times. You have free airspace available, right? you can clearly invest in those kind of things. So it's a mm, big mess. All of your questions are in a sense rhetorical, and there's a lot of work which needs to be done.
I would go on to the second question, which is, would transformation of Mumbai hawker culture like Singapore not be a slam dunk political move, regardless of party? Why is political intent lacking? I think generally in Mumbai, especially the politicians have gotten very like comfortable, to be very honest. कुछ ना कुछ हो जाएगा, people will be voting for them. A lot of these politicians who are present have been in their seat for over 10, 15 years. And they are also coming from a very, I don't know, they don't have a vision, to be very honest. We have had conversations with certain like the right hand people of politicians, and they did not exude intellect, to be very honest. How do you think this could be made an electoral issue in the upcoming BMC elections? I feel it has to be a ground up movement. There is no other way to take up walkability and hawking as an issue. Like the issues, actually issues of the common people. There's no other way other than mass movement, mass mobilization, where everybody is asking their neighbor, their dog, their mom, grandmother, everything to take up some of these points as uh, an electoral issue. And just, I think a lot also needs to change from the media's part, where the media also helps people understand and shape opinion, because media is the tool of shaping opinion. And right now, the media generally just reports. Very little is actually said about the solutions. So solutions that some of the things that Rishi mentioned, until a certain amount of time, I think they used to be reported. And the general person in the local train used to know, okay, what will be the problem, what will be the solution for a certain problem. कि, train अगर late है तो वो क्यों late है, and what should be the exact thing that the government should implement. और hawker है तो वो क्यों है, and what should be like hawker centers is some the solution which should be in the media. People should be reading this, people should be coming across this at multiple times, and that is when the overall knowledge of people increases, and uh, it becomes an election issue when people are demanding for all this. Next question is by Dr. Matthew. Do we follow IRC 103 2012 guidelines for footpath with design accessibility? So it's a gray area. So BMC has come up with its own universal footpath policy in 2023, जिसमें minimum is I think 1.5, and to be very honest, they don't really follow them. Recent some of the footpaths you see, the height ka thing is followed, but the slopes are not followed to the IRC. Uh, Width is completely not followed. Width is very randomly decided. They generally go with a minimum width कि 1.5 या 1.8 minimum है, तो कम उतना दे देते हैं, रोड कितना भी वाइड हो उतना दे देते हैं, then we just build on top of it and keep building on top of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions?
No, thanks, Vedant, Rishi. Those are very helpful perspectives coming, I'm sure, from lots of experience in this space. Just one follow-up thought that I had is that since you mentioned the challenges of building up bottom-up ground level support, um, I'm just wondering out loud, could this not be something tackled in a more top-down fashion? For instance, instead of engaging with mid-level IAS officers or joint secretaries who will probably be in their post only for 1.5, 2 years and then move on to some other department, why not tackle or work directly with, let's say, the Mumbai chiefs of the political parties like an Amit Satam or an Aditya Thackeray equivalent, or maybe even a deputy CM or CM, if we are able to get that opportunity to engage with them. And similarly, with leading corporate leaders in Mumbai, I attended the conclave you had in April, and I could actually see many big industrialist names in attendance. Could their forums or their voice not carry a lot more weight than, let's say, individual citizens like ourselves? And that could probably lead to some top-down focus on this issue rather than trying to cobble together a group of 10, 20, 50 citizens, which is a very challenging task.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So generally, I have found that convincing one of the politicians, I would name him directly, but this problem was taken to him by a lot of people in one of the town hall meetings I had attended, and the guy immediately happened to be so vehemently anti-hawker ki he said कि in the public meeting he literally said कि तोड़ देते हैं उनका जो ये हॉकर स्टॉल है, ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या होगा, कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्ट होगा, देख लेंगे वो बाद में क्या होगा कंटेम्प्ट ऑफ कोर्ट में. सो if we are to approach a lot of these high level politicians, I think they need to also have a certain level of nuance, or if we have to break through that the rigid mentality that they have right now, it's going to take a lot of effort. We will need some trusted associate of him through which we go. There's a lot of things that will have to come in place and a lot of effort which will have to go into something like that. Uh, that is there. I think regarding corporates, which I feel that is a far more effective uh, thing that can be done, because one of the examples that I have is actually outside of the uh, Godrej and Boys compound in Bikroli. You see a lot of hawkers which are present right outside their gates, and a lot of these corporates are coming during the afternoon lunch hours to have food over there. It would be very nice if Godrej had a hawker center within their premises for all of their employees, uh, which would be far more affordable and hygienic than something like that. So yeah, I think within our work we will definitely try to take up the corporate part and the corporate part and overall strategically think about it, what it could be some other ways.
Wonderful, very helpful. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Happy to have more detailed conversations on this offline.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
How does land allocation happen in Singapore? Singapore, it is. I mean, it is fairly similar, but it happens in a far more planned manner. Singapore, throughout the years, has also reclaimed a lot of land. It has also it does everything in a very planned manner. So they have these newer housing HDBs, I think they call them, the public housing areas in which you have, they are fairly self-sufficient. Each housing block has a school, it will have a hospital, it will have a hawker center, it will be connected to a transit hub. Far more planned than anything that we are building in Mumbai, even when we consider now Mumbai in that. Uh, share what Haider had to share what Haider had to share at the conclave and what we discussed at YB in January. I'm not sure what you are referring to, Rishi.
Anyways, we'll share that link with everybody. Heather, that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
video, right? What Heather,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, in a very agonizing way, shared all the mismanagement and all the details of the bad
yeah,
governance which is going about.
yeah.
So that is what I was talking about.
So
And
Manisha
just
asks,
one
okay,
more thing, Vedant, I think in our Koperkhedne walk, we happened to visit such a beautiful that
yeah,
so this is a lot of it is a planning feature where and this is also where we are missing out in the current redevelopment boom that is happening in Mumbai because FSI is liberally. I mean, this. I mean, we've already missed the bus again. It's a recurring story for India, for Mumbai. But 5 years, 10 years back, clearly it should have been in the planning that if you're going to give FSI on tap on a premium, then we need to start creating amenities. Hawker centers just being one of them. Open space ratio is now beyond bad. and a lot of other things like primary healthcare centers or even community halls, etc. Needs to be planned. Navi Mumbai, that was a great market that we got to experience during our walk.
So Manisha asks, how do hawkers in Mumbai feel about the development of designated hawker centers? I feel generally the hawkers are quite positive because they will have certain amount of like legality which comes to their business and operations if the hawker centers are present. This was actually something we found out during a survey which students who we were partnering with had done. So we had done a session with the Balwant Seth School of College Architecture students, and they had actually interviewed some 25 hawkers present in the Irla Gully in Villeparle West. And they had asked a lot of hawkers about their history, where they come from, and what kind of hawking activity they engage in, what are the problems they face, and how is the BMC and all of these people? Would they be willing to go to a market if it is designated and designed properly? So yeah, I think hawkers generally feel good about the designated hawker centers. But the thing is, again, planning comes into the thing. Are we planning the hawker centers in a proper in a location where there are a lot of people, there's a lot of footfall? Are the hawker centers themselves designed properly? Do they have large enough doors and gates that people feel like going inside? Generally, Mumbai, we have certain markets and all municipal markets which are present, but sadly, we don't design them properly. We say कि 20 स्टोरी का हम बिल्डिंग बनाएंगे for hawkers and पूरे अंधेरी का hawkers उसमें डाल देंगे, but it doesn't work that way. Nobody is going to go anything about 2 to 3 floors for going to buy a grocery. That is not how it works, and it has to be done in a proper manner. Experts from the field need to do these things, and experts need to be employed by the BMC for solving these. Sunit asks, BMC is pushing for creating the new parking spots in the city. Why not hawking it? What is the difference? What is the difference between the two issues? Parking is generally seen as a rightful activity, whereas hawking is generally not, because a lot of the uh, decision making class in the city comes in cars. Every IAS officer gets his own car. Every mid-level official within BMC or whatever government, you have their own designated cars. We have also seen it at a lot of times. We actually did this survey with BMC officials in Borivali station, around Borivali station area, and we could sense in their experience that they had never walked that way. ठीक है, road redevelopment होता है, but they never actually go physically and walk the footpath. They are in their car, they're sitting, looking out from the window कि अच्छा footpath ऐसे दिखता है. But there are a lot of problems which come out when you walk on that footpath, and small nuances which you understand when you walk on that footpath, which only come out when you get to experience a certain thing over there. So I feel if a lot more politicians and bureaucrats would be taking the metros, the railways to commute and experience at least once a week, then they would see that parking is not a thing which should be focused so much on. Whereas hawking, if we solve the station area ka areas improvement, we could actually solve problems for what 65 lakh people who take the railways every day. That is again something Anirudh brought up. It's such a low-hanging fruit, but the vision is generally not seen, or it is overlooked because a lot of decision-making class does not experience that every day. Anyone has any more questions? I think we don't seem to have any more questions. It's 11:41, been an hour and 10 minutes. I would really thank all of you guys to have come and attended this webinar. This is something we knew we started. This is only the second webinar that we have posted. The previous one on parking was actually conducted by Rishi, and that is present on it's present on our website. Thanks a lot for coming again. It was a great pleasure to host you guys.